3. Mal. The blazing midday sun beat down mercilessly on the ancient crumbling limestone of the Old Kingdom ruins. Alice wiped a sheen of sweat from her brow, feeling the heavy beaten gold collar around her neck growing uncomfortably warm against her collarbone. The morning after the grand banquet, the city's ruler had insisted the divine shadows be given a tour of their ancestors' monuments. And so Alice found herself trudging down a dusty, sun-baked avenue flanked by 4 elite city guards and a highly animated royal guide. The guide was currently gesturing grandly toward a half-collapsed obelisk, speaking in the rapid, flowing cadence of the realm. Alice had no idea what he was saying. She just offered a stiff, polite smile and an occasional highly exaggerated nod, hoping she looked like a respectful servant and not someone entirely lost in an alien desert. "He says the monument was erected to honour the first feline ascendant," Poppet's voice echoed coolly in her mind. The black cat was sitting in the meagre shade of a ruined colonnade, his golden eyes fixed on the carvings. It is a rather crude representation, but the sentiment is acceptable. "I think it looks precisely like you, brother," Mango projected, his mental tone dripping with amusement as he batted lazily at a passing desert beetle, a bit weathered and overly serious. Alice let out a quiet sigh, adjusting the pleated white linen of her dress. Despite the stunning architecture and the fascinating telepathic banter of her cats, the crushing heat and the sheer isolation of not speaking the language were beginning to take their toll. She felt a sudden, sharp pang of homesickness for the damp, cool sanctuary of the briarwood. Her thoughts were abruptly cut short by the crunch of sandals on loose stone. Stepping out from the deep shadows of the colonnade was a tall, weathered man in his early 40s. He was dressed in a rough, dusty linen tunic, his skin deeply tanned by the sun, and his face framed by a rugged, sun-bleached beard. He looked like any other local labourer or scholar, carrying a piece of charcoal and a rolled parchment. The guards instantly tensed. Bronze spears snapped forward, pointing sharply at the stranger's chest. The guide puffed up, preparing to shout at the peasant who had dared interrupt the Divine Shadow's tour. The man ignored the weapons completely. He locked eyes with Alice, offered a polite, deeply familiar smile, and spoke in clear, perfectly enunciated English with a warm, distinct Scottish accent. "Good morning," he said, his voice echoing lightly against the ancient stone. "It's a bit warm for a stroll today, isn't it? I'd highly recommend sticking to the shade. That limestone is remarkably slippery if you aren't used to it." Alice froze. Her polite smile vanished, replaced by an expression of pure, unadulterated shock. She stared at the dusty stranger, her brain struggling to process the sound of a Scottish accent in the middle of a sun-scorched alien empire. "Well," Mango's voice echoed dryly in her mind, his tail twitching in surprise, "this is an unexpected development." You speak English?" Alice finally stammered, her voice cracking in the dry air. The man's smile widened, a look of profound relief washing over his weathered face. "I do. Malcolm, Mal to my friends, at your service. Though I must admit, I wasn't expecting to run into someone from home while examining the ruins of the Old Kingdom, especially not one travelling with such esteemed company." He nodded respectfully toward the 2 cats. Before Alice could ask a single question, the guide began to shout angrily in the local dialect, waving his hands dismissively at Mal. The guards stepped forward, their spears gleaming dangerously. "Tell them he is a prophet from our homeland," Poppet commanded sharply in Alice's mind, his sleek black form rising from the dust. "Tell them we wish to hear his wisdom in private, quickly, before they skewer him." Alice scrambled to mime the order. She pointed frantically at Mal, then at the cats, bringing her hands together in a gesture she hoped looked like friendship or important guest. She widened her eyes and nodded emphatically at the guide. "He comes with us, good man. We talk now." Mal stepped in, attempting to translate Alice's frantic gestures. He spoke to the guard in their own language, though he could only converse with them in a very basic, rough form of the Bast tongue. The guards didn't seem completely convinced, glancing suspiciously between the dusty scholar and the frantic servant. But when Mango let out a loud, authoritative yowl and trotted purposefully to stand at Mal's feet, the matter was settled. The guards lowered their spears, bowing their heads respectfully, and gestured for the strange foreigner to join their procession. An hour later, they were safely back within the cool, shadowed walls of Alice's opulent bedchamber in the palace. The heavy wooden doors were firmly shut against the curious eyes of the handmaidens. Alice immediately sank onto the plush cushions of the bed, the sheer relief of hearing a familiar voice making her feel dizzy all over again. Mal remained standing by the open balcony, looking out over the winding green river with a wistful expression. Mango and Poppet had taken up residence on a nearby table, their unblinking yellow eyes fixed intently on the newcomer. "I don't even know where to begin," Alice breathed, rubbing her temples. "How are you here? Are you from Scotland? Are there more of us?" Mal turned back to the room, a dry chuckle escaping his lips. "Edinburgh, originally, born and raised, and as far as I know, we are the only two Brits who have stumbled into this mess." He reached beneath the collar of his rough tunic and pulled out a heavy leather pouch that rested against his chest. Carefully, reverently, he untied the leather cords and tipped a heavy object into his palm. Alice leaned forward. It was a thick palm-sized disc crafted of interwoven silver and gold. The metalwork was intricate and ancient, completely unlike the Egyptian-style jewellery she currently wore. But it was the centre of the disc that caught her breath, a perfectly cut, flawless blue crystal that seemed to catch the light even in the shadowed room. "I feel the resonance of the veil on that object," Poppet murmured in Alice's mind, his tail wrapping tightly around his paws. "It hums with the same frequency as the doorways." "I'm an archaeologist," Mal began, his voice dropping to a quiet, reverent tone as he ran his thumb over the gold rim of the disc. 3 years ago, I was managing a freezing, miserable excavation up in the Highlands. We were digging near a set of standing stones when I unearthed this. At first, I thought it was a ceremonial Celtic artifact." He held the disc up by its edge, bringing the blue crystal close to his right eye. But the first time I looked through the glass, the world fractured. I saw tears in the air, rips in the fabric of reality that no one else could see. Alice nodded slowly, her mind flashing back to the rippling air between the ancient sycamores in the briarwood. "Portals?" "Exactly," Mal said, lowering the disc. "If I walk toward one of these invisible tiers with the device in hand, the metal begins to glow with a brilliant pulsing blue light, and the portal materializes right in front of me." He traced the intricate gold rim of the artifact, a look of lingering wonder in his eyes. "At first it was entirely random. I stepped through the doors blindly, ending up in realms I couldn't even describe. But over time, I realized I could actually tune a portal. If I gripped the device and concentrated my attention deeply enough on a specific realm I had already visited, the crystal would align the frequency of the doorway to that exact destination. Through some rather terrifying trial and error, I eventually improved my ability to use it. For 2 years, I used the device to safely travel between realms." Mal paused, a wry, slightly grim smile touching his lips. "Though I quickly learned the limits of what can travel through those doors. Swords, knives, and arrows pass through perfectly fine. But anything volatile, dynamite, blasting powder, even a single bullet chambered in a modern gun, cannot pass through the veil. The chaotic energy of the portal instantly ignites it. I nearly lost an arm finding that out. The multiverse, it seems, has a strict policy against bringing modern explosives into its borders. Alice blinked, absorbing the information. That explained why the city guards were armed with bronze spears instead of assault rifles. Mal's expression darkened, and he let the heavy disc drop back against his chest. It was the greatest archaeological discovery in human history, but for the past 12 months I've been stranded here in Bast, unable to leave. Why? Alice asked, sitting up straighter. Did the device break? No, Mal sighed heavily. The realm broke. He looked directly at Mango and Poppet. As I'm sure your companions have already noticed, the magic in this world is palpable. It's woven into the earth, but it isn't generated by the earth. It was generated by the cats. The felines of Bast were highly magical creatures. They were the living batteries of this realm, holding the frequency of the veil together. He knows, Poppet projected to Alice, his yellow eyes narrowing with intense focus. A year ago, Mal continued, his Scottish brogue thickening with lingering anger, a man arrived, a dark magician who called himself Severin. Through trickery and foul magic, he tore open a massive rift in the sky and dragged every last magical cat from Bast into his own twisted realm. When he left, the ambient magic here plummeted. The frequency dropped so low that the portals slammed shut. He tapped the leather pouch on his chest. Without the cats, there isn't enough magic in the air to power my device. It hasn't glowed once since the day Severin left. Alice stared at him, the pieces rapidly falling into place. She looked at Mango and Poppet, remembering the violent golden-hot portal that had opened in her garden. It hadn't just been a random doorway. The broken realm had been desperately calling out for the magic it had lost. "We know about Severin," Alice said quietly. Mal blinked, clearly taken aback. "You do?" "Tell him we are here to hunt the sorcerer down," Mango's voice echoed, carrying a dangerous regal edge. The black cat stood up on the table, the faint, beautiful blue geometric lines suddenly shimmering across his dark coat. "Tell him that if his device can track the scent of the portals, we have the magic required to pry them open. And, Alice, inform him that we are currently communicating with you. Perhaps over time, if he proves himself useful, we may build a connection with him as well." Alice relayed the message, her voice steady. Mal's eyes widened as he watched the magical blue runes pulse across the cat's fur, and the realization that the cats were actively conversing with her hit him fully. Slowly, a genuine, hopeful smile broke through his weathered beard. "Well then, Alice," Mal breathed, gripping the leather pouch tightly, "it seems we have a rescue mission to plan."